There is always room for more fries. I mean, think about it. Picture yourself holding. Are you holding a French fry right now?
No.
Okay. Well, if the listeners at home, if you have access to a French fry, pick it up. And if not, I want you to close your eyes and envision yourself holding a French fry. You have just eaten an entire meal, right? I don't care what it is. You get to decide. But you're holding a fry in your hand. That fry's not very big. Do you mean to tell me that you cannot eat that fry, even if you just ate and you're quote unquote full? Because there's next to nothing to it. You have room for it, right? And then after you do that, what's another one? And then another one after that. Unless you are literally, like, about to throw up, filled to the brim, there is always room for more fries. There is not always room for dessert. That is a myth. The truth, right here on the Velvet Parlor podcast,
No.
is that there is always room for more fries.
That's how we're gonna start the very first episode of the East 15th.
Yep. Because I was
there's
talking
always
about this. Yeah, I was sitting in a diner a few weeks ago. Go ahead.
A parlor, if you will.
Haha, yeah. I was sitting in a diner, and I had a plate of fries in front of me, and I was full because I'd finished my meal. But I looked at a fry and I thought, I have room for this. And then after I ate it, I had room for more, and I ended up finishing the plate of fries. So I went from being full to full, but with fries.
There you go.
There's always room.
There's always room for fries.
There's always room for fries. And I thought about that, and I thought, out of all the profound thoughts I get that we could put into a podcast, I think this has got to be the first one.
It could be, and I believe
and
it is.
It is.
It is at this point.
And this is something. This is something that we're supposed to be proud of when we're 30. Of
course.
And I think we're off to a great start.
Speaking of starts, I think we'll do the first introduction. Kind of first welcome to the podcast. This is the East 15th podcast. This is episode 1. I was going to say the very first episode, but we can just simply say this is episode 1. We've had 2 episode 1s before. Because if you are very new here, you wouldn't know that this used to be the Certified Adolescence podcast. And now that we are very fresh in that adulthood, Aaron's already 18. I'm going to be turning 18 in the summer. And, going off to college and all that. I feel like it was time to shift the podcast that we barely kept up with in the first place into a more mature position. And I think that's what we've done. The East 15th, a name that took way too long to come to. We don't live on East 15th. Don't try to find our address. It's not there, I promise you.
Where we do live.
Yeah, where we do live, though, is East 14th. So
you
can find us at East 14th Street. But yeah, it's a new era. This is like era number 3. Third new era-ish, kind of. I don't know. The point is that we keep coming back. That I think that's a good thing. There's not a time that either me or Aaron haven't texted each other and we're just like, we could start the podcast up back again, because it keeps happening. But I think we're going to try and commit to it more a little bit this time around. We did say that last time. But at least going into the summer, we'll have a little more free time. I won't have that much free time, as I'll be training for something for college all throughout the summer and through the beginning of it. But for the Aaron works as well. I also work on top of that. So we are generally busy people, but we try to make it work. We're only talking about doing probably an episode a week, I think, is probably a good place to start. Nothing crazy. You got to start your goals small and then go from there. And if you can complete just, the first one, then you're probably at least good with that. Aaron, do you have anything to add to that?
and one episode a week is what we said last time, but we'll see how it goes. So
Yeah,
yeah,
we
and
said
again,
we said a lot. We said a lot.
so for those of you who are brand new, like Chase said, we originally started this as the Certified Adolescence Podcast back in early 2021. We did, I believe, 5 episodes, and then it just kind of fell off. You know, we lost our touch with editing and didn't have the time, miraculously, in a COVID-ridden era where we had all sorts of time at the age of 15 years old. Then we recorded 2 episodes in the early spring of 2023, and once again, just lost it. And here we are again. You know, I keep getting these profound enough thoughts, and I think this would be good podcast material, such as, you know, there's always room for more fries and all that great stuff. Um, so here we are again, like Chase said. Our commitment, we'll see how it goes. You know, I mean, like I said, we said that last time. You know, we said we were going to do 1 episode a week. We got 2 episodes out over the course of a month, and then didn't pick it up again.
Of
We'll
course.
see. We'll see how the summer goes, and you know, if it fizzles out again, you know, I'm sure we'll be back next year. But let's see if we can actually get something going this time.
Yeah, I mean it's what is it called? The future is our oyster or something. I don't know what the the phrase is,
I
but
didn't tell you.
I don't know. Neither of us know. But that's besides the point. Aaron, do you have anything in specific you want to specifically that you want to bring up for the podcast? Or any topics of the day here, or we just
I
chatting?
I would like to take my sweatshirt off first. So
That's a great
excuse
topic.
me for one moment.
All right.
You can hear me, but I can't hear you because I have a new microphone. Oops, there goes my sticky keys. My headphones are back on, so I can hear you again. I
There
got a
we
new
go.
microphone yesterday, and now my audio quality is better than ever. For those of you that heard
Oh
the
yeah.
older episodes, it went from wind tunnel to uh, slightly better than a wind tunnel. But I've been told that it is much better now, and I'm very happy about that.
I think everyone is happy about that. I've always had the more quality mic just because invested in that a lot earlier. But I'm glad we can kind of not evil, level. The word is level. I just removed the L.
Even and level
We,
combined, evil.
yeah, we can level the playing field a little bit and get one consistent like listening experience. Because I think both of our mics now just sound just as clear as the other. Um, Unfortunately for me, you spent a lot less money, but I also did
That I
recommend that
did.
mic to you. But I also bought this thing a while ago, so it doesn't really matter. But um, yeah, I mean, it's the new era, and it's a new era for all of us. Do you graduate tomorrow?
My graduation is tomorrow, yes.
Yeah, okay. I figured just because your graduation practice was today, and that's how it was structured over at my high school.
Mm.
So I mean, yeah, if you couldn't tell by that, just in general, we're already moving into a new era as people, which is, I mean, you only get one time that you graduate from high school and you go to college, if you choose to do so, and I mean, it's quite the change. As someone who just went to Ohio State's orientation, um, it's it's kind of odd. I think I like. It's odd because it's new. Obviously, it's a brand new thing, but also because I feel like it almost will be easier for me, which is not typical. But I think because I mean I did my schedule like yesterday. I scheduled for fall semester, and it's like it's less demanding, at least in the hour sense, than my high school experience ever was,
Which
especially this
is
past year.
yeah, and that is a very strange concept to me for you because given that you are going to be you know, taking part in one of the most competitive marching bands in the country, if not the world. Uh,
Well, at least if I get into to Biddle, the best damn band in the land.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, that is a part of the schedule. And I even went into some forums and it was like, so what do we think of the schedule? Trying to get the, current student perspective. And they were like, that looks like hell considering it's from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. But the funny thing for me is like, oh yeah, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. You know how many days at my high school I had to stay from 6:40 a.m. to 10 p.m. It's more than a couple weeks probably worth of days because I've been involved with so many extracurriculars. I've held multiple leadership positions, and to do that along with your schooling takes a lot. I mean, it really does. Um, and going to college, at least my first semester, I'm not doing any band or any choir or anything but marching band. It's it's less of a workload because of the less hours, but also just the huge breaks in between. I mean, in school, you're used to having 4 minutes in between each class,
Yeah.
which of which of course, I mean, you're going to be walking. It's not like you won't be busy going from class to class, but it's just kind of insane that it's like, well, some of them I got 3 hours in between that I can go to the gym or do whatever my schedule is up for, or do clubs and different stuff like that. Um, So I don't know. I just like how flexible it is, and obviously I'm going to be living on campus, and Columbus has a lot to offer. Um, so yeah, I'm excited to see how that goes and what that looks like. But it should be quite the experience. I mean, just the flexibility of it and the lighter workload, at least to what I'm used to, is going to make something. It's not going to make something. It's going to make it pretty interesting, but at the same time, I recognize that these classes may or may not be harder than what I'm used to as someone who has taken APs and taken CCP classes. Um, but I don't know. We're gonna see. We're gonna find out. I'm sure I'll talk about it on the podcast when I'm on campus in my dorm doing these podcasts. Um, which should be pretty easy because I can bring this. Hopefully, it just depends on what the desk looks like at the dorm, but I'll make it work either way.
Well, it kind of sounds to me like you might end up being a Friday hater instead.
A Friday hater? I mean, yeah. I mean,
I mean, I know
everyone.
that takes a lot, but that schedule.
Yeah, the Friday schedule is pretty loaded. I mean, I'm gonna have, but at the same time, I'll already be busy regardless. Because if I get in the band, then I'm gonna be preparing for Saturday, which is the day after. So those days are already gonna be heavy, regardless. But Um, I mean, that just comes with it. If you want to try to sign up to be in the marching band, it's not an easy thing. It's not easy because they are the Ohio State marching band. But that's what I'm working for all summer. That's what I'll be vlogging the process of and giving you an inside look of, what's that like? How do I prepare? Um, when do I prepare, and what do you need to prepare, kind of thing. But yeah, I don't know. It's I got quite the summer ahead of me. The first summer session, or like the first boot camp session, pretty much is June 4th, which is next week. So
Oh yeah,
I'll be
yeah, no kidding. That's creeping up. That's
yeah
when? What is that? Wednesday?
Tuesday.
Tuesday? Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll be driving down there Tuesday. It depends if I want to go early or if I want to go on time. Which on time is still early because I'm not trying to mess with anything plenty early.
Right.
But yeah, but sometimes I might choose to go even earlier just so I can avoid the crazy traffic when you're in Columbus at
Oh
2
boy.
p.m.
Their
or any.
highway construction, it's so weird down there.
It is, I mean, yeah. There's a lot of random construction, but there's also the drivers itself. I mean, the drivers themselves are quite interesting, I guess. I mean, even Cleveland highways are pretty um crazy. I mean, if you go, it doesn't matter what day it is, if you go to the Cleveland Highway at 10 p.m., there's going to be someone racing by you at 150 miles
Yeah.
per hour.
And of course, Cleveland is known for having some of the tamer traffic of the major cities in the United States. And I would agree. Having visited San Francisco a few months ago, I have seen some driving that makes Ohio look like light work. Uh,
Yeah.
I really, having driven on 71, I haven't driven downtown, but I've driven around it. That's
Yeah.
Interstate 71. I, it's definitely not that bad in comparison to something like the 101, in downtown San Francisco.
Yeah. Which, I mean, when you're going down to Columbus, most of the time you end up on I-77, I believe, or I-71. It's either one. Um, and I mean, you go through a bunch, but at least from where I'm at, I got to go down, um, like all the way through Amish country, and then I finally get on the highway, and then about an hour after that, you're in Columbus. it's not a hard drive. I mean, I did it 2 days ago, for orientation and
Yeah.
whatnot. So, um, and I did the drive back yesterday. So
Hmm.
it's not anything crazy, but it's um not exactly quick. But I don't know. I
No.
think 2 hours is very manageable, just because it's like you can do it in a day trip,
Oh
which I
yeah.
think is probably the best perk, is that you can, you could be there and back in one day and not be that bent out of shape in terms of your schedule. So
Yeah.
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
it's
There's a
not
lot of
necessarily modest, but it's manageable. Sure.
yeah, but yeah. I mean, we're I have quite the year ahead of me. I mean, both of us do. Both really, our whole class does. It's
Oh, for
quite
sure.
the change. But yeah, I mean, when I was going through orientation, I was just kind of reflecting, like, wow, like you really do have that much freedom when you're in high school. Like even in college, they were talking about, like, they don't give you a tardy slip. If you want to skip class, it doesn't matter. Like they
Yeah.
don't care. Most of your professors don't even know what your face looks like because there's 300 of you in the room, unless it's a smaller class. Like
Right.
there's a very big that, like, I mean, if you go all the way up, elementary school, you're in one teacher's classroom for 5 hours in a day, and they teach multiple things, or you switch over to another teacher and they teach you for another 3 hours. But the point is that you're in one classroom for a while, and
Yeah.
those teachers get to know you over a whole course of a year. These teachers only get to know you over a semester. And if you sit all the way in the back row and you don't show up half the time, you really expect them to know
They're
you?
never gonna know who you are. Yeah.
Yeah, and no, and that's what they were talking about, because they were like, well, you're going to need letters of recommendation. So we recommend, like, actually going to office hours, actually getting to know your teachers, and actually, you know, putting in the extra work to differentiate yourself, but also make yourself known in a way. I mean, I know that I'm going to try to strive to form relationships with my professors, mainly because I've seen the kind of benefits it has in high school specifically. To get letters of recommendations was not hard at all for me, and I can only
No.
imagine people who don't even care to even maybe form some sort of professional relationship with their teacher. Like, imagine going to a teacher and, like, you're like the worst student in their class. Like, they're going to be way less inclined. They probably don't know you that well anyway. If you're just, a major troublemaker. So but it's very freeing in a way at the same time, like seeing all these huge blocks in my day, which I had released being doing CCP this year, but having all this free time, like, in between, and having almost all Monday off, and having this flexible block schedule where I'm not doing the same thing every day. Like, it's just like this is what the college life is like, where they put a lot more trust on that, if you want to get this done, you have to get it done. It's not high school where they have the grips on everything else. There was one time that I accidentally skipped a class because it was COVID and the schedules were going all over the place. And somehow, and for some reason, um, they knew my personal cell phone number, which I had no
Oh.
clue that they could find that out. I'm pretty sure only, like, your parents' phone number should be at the school, but um, they knew it, and I got a call from the superintendent because I
Oh.
missed one day.
That got you up to the superintendent, huh?
Like, how important am I? How am I just this little guy
Literally. Do you know who my
during
father
co
is?
yeah, bro,
Yeah.
like, during COVID, when all these classes are getting completely mixed up to where I have no clue when really anything is for certain, because I swear they changed how the schedule works every couple of weeks. So it was a mess. And yeah, I accidentally slept through it and got a call, and I was just like, okay, this is absurd. But even other times, like, they're so adamant about your attendance, which, I mean, it's a legal thing, so it makes sense. Like, by law, they have to do that. But then you go to college, and it's like, yeah, if you want to get good grades, you can come to class, but you don't have to.
I
No one's
mean,
gonna
you're
tell you to
paying.
go to class. Yeah, and you're paying for it regardless. Your mommy's not gonna put your clothes out for you and then wake you up in the morning. Like, if you want to do this, you want to get your degree, you want to do whatever, like, you have to get it done. And it's freeing for me, because I always felt like I haven't really struggled with school in general, but also that I'm someone who's, like, a big like planner, and I like to be prepared as much as I can. So I usually set myself up for success. And the fact that now I'm not limited by what the teachers want to set up, but now, if I want to make this my own systems to make me succeed, I can do that, and they encourage it. Um, and it's really necessary now because there are no safety nets. There is like academic probation, and I'm not trying to say that there isn't a support system. Yes, there is a support system at Ohio State, but at the same time, you gotta, hold yourself accountable as well. Give me 1 second. BRB.
Well, while he goes wherever he's going, I guess now would be a time to tell you guys about our Discord server. Um, we have had a Discord server since the birth of this podcast that we have um, offered users to join. We do all our recording through our Discord server. We're doing that right now. And the way we have it set up, you can actually listen in live and hear pretty much everything. We don't do too much editing as it stands right now. Um, but anything that we might need to cut out, such as Chase leaking all our personal information, I guess we're putting that at risk by allowing you to listen to us live. But it is always an option. You can also, ask us questions, give us things to talk about, and we're always looking to have people on the show as well. So we will link the Discord server in the episode description. On all of our, I believe it is 11 platforms now that we are on. So be sure to join our Discord server. If we keep this thing going, which I really hope we will, you can play a very active part in it, especially in these early stages when we are not, as big and there aren't as many people here. Very easy to manage, listener engagement as it stands right now. In addition to that, we have a handful of social media pages that aren't really used that often because we haven't been recording in a while. I don't know how we're going to go about using those, but if we decide to, we will link those in the description as well and have those at your expense.
Yeah, so Aaron just, it sounds like he just plugged all of our stuff. I was gone for just a moment, so thank you for filling the spot, I guess, filling the void. Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess to wrap up the topic in general, I'm just excited for this, the, it's a weird phrase, but the freedom of freedom. Like,
Yeah,
I've had freedom, like CCP having the releases I practically took a half gap year this year, but even so, I was involved with so many extracurriculars that I, like, legitimately, I mean, I spent more time with on out of school hours at the school than I did during school hours. I was in that many extracurriculars. So I mean, it's been quite the ride, but yeah. And actually going about extracurriculars, Ohio State does have this club and I guess satire magazine that, dude, you would absolutely love, which you can follow the Instagram and still get all their stuff, but it's called the Sundial. And there's their actual news, like student news magazine called The Lantern at Ohio State, which is like pretty prestigious and yada yada because it's Ohio State.
of course.
Um but the the Sundial on the other hand is essentially like, I don't want to be disrespectful and say like it's all the kids that didn't get into the Lantern because that's not true, but it almost seems like it. Like you could picture like, oh, they didn't let me be an editor at the Lanterns. I'm gonna go make silly little comedy stories, satire stories at the Sundial. But most of the time, it's just people who want to make these silly satire stories. It's not people who generally like weren't good enough for the Lantern, but it's a mere joke. But um, my friend who is a current student going into her second year, she is now actually on the executive board for the Sundial, but she's been telling me about it and I follow their stuff. But it's R.L. Stein, the maker of Goosebumps, actually was on the Sundial and still is in contact with them
With
to this day.
Willie's Chocolate Experience to open U.S. location at Ohio Union. That's terrifying.
Oh, are you looking at their stuff?
I am scrolling through their Instagram page right now.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it's just
R.L. Stein.
Yeah, R.L. Stein, a very famous author of Goosebumps. Everyone knows Goosebumps. He went to Ohio State and he wrote for the Sundial. Um, and yeah, they still are in contact with him, which I think is just another like really cool perk. But at the same time, like it's a very low commitment little thing, but I think I'll end up doing that just because I already know someone on the e-board for it, and um, it's just a silly little thing to get involved and meet new people. So whatever I can do, I want to do that because even orientation, they like pretty much forced us to try to get to know people. They put us in these small little groups and we played all these stupid little games, but I mean, it was fun. I got to meet some people, but I felt like this could have been condensed into one day. I did not have to do 2 days of that. Like even the second day was like barely a half day because it was just such little stuff that was actually like relevant. Um, so then when it came to the day one stuff, we were just sitting around playing little games. Although that is fun, and I think it is important to try to break people out of their shell, beforehand. And I know some people probably form relationships at orientation that then follow months later, but simultaneously I'm just like I'm here to get my buck ID. I'm here to get my classes scheduled. I'm not here to play all these little games. Like I will mingle and meet new people and do all that when I come to school in the fall, which to me is a lot more valuable because at orientation, most of the relationships you form there, most of them, for the most part, are going to fizzle out or they won't form in the first place. Versus in the fall, you can make relationships with the people in your classes and different stuff like that, and actually have more lasting relationships that will benefit you versus, just um, little little friends you make at orientation. But I don't know, it's gonna be quite the experience. So, and I know that um, you're again, we talked about it. Your life isn't really going to change much as you're going to a local school, but at the same time, you're going to be not in high school. You're going to be traveling a little bit farther away. It sounds like so. It's going to
Right.
change a little bit, but not 2 hours away. Brand new environment, 40,000 people on campus, craziness, all of that.
Yeah,
But
so for the listeners' reference, my original plan was to go to Ohio University for broadcast journalism, which was about 3.5 hours away from Cleveland, where we're based out of, and uh, eh, obviously that would have been quite the change of pace for me. So that plan ended up getting turned on its head due to a combination of financial and personal reasons. I'm no longer going. I will be going to community college instead. And yeah, it definitely is a big change. It really, like you said, I mean, my life doesn't seem to be changing much now, especially in comparison to what it was going to be. But I don't necessarily think that's a terrible thing. It keeps me in my job, that I like a lot. I run escape rooms. Very fun job, pays pretty good. So I like that a lot. Get to keep doing that. Hopefully they will make me a manager eventually because I more or less already act like one. And it keeps me around the people that I know and, all the things I like to do. So obviously not as big a change as you will be undergoing, but I don't think that's a terrible thing. And I might still transfer over in a few years anyway.
do you
But
think you would transfer to OU, or would you open that up to more options, or what?
no, I would definitely. I mean, unless I undergo like major changes of interest in like career,
Yeah.
I would definitely go to OU because they have one of the better journalism schools in the country, which is again as of right now what I would like to go into. And I really enjoyed the campus and the city of Athens was gorgeous. So I
Oh
think
yeah.
I'd still like to go there. And biggest party school in the tri-state area because that's totally my demographic. Everybody.
Yes, the tri-state area. But yeah, I mean
Yeah, call me
it's
Dr. Doofenshmirtz with that one.
oh yeah. Yeah, I visited, so I've been on a visit to OU, I've been on campus, and I don't know, which I mean we went to OSU, we visited together. Um but it's I don't know, I feel like OSU is more my speed in that I feel like I'm very like type A, go 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 go, big city, yada yada, lots of people. Like I feel like that's more my speed. Where OU, still a pretty large student population, but you're in the middle of nowhere. You're literally in the woods, but
Yeah.
beautiful city, and I'm sure the weekends get crazy, but um, as they do in OSU, of course. But it's just I don't know. I feel like for what I want to do specifically, there's more opportunity at OSU than there would be at OU, even though OU has plenty fine business program. Um, but yeah, I mean, even yesterday at the orientation, we were sitting in one of the lecture halls that like literally looks like a room in the White House, and I was just like, this is
Yeah.
nice. Like the chairs are hella comfortable. The room makes me feel very like executive, which it's not like a oh, I just like how the room makes me feel, but it's just like it feels real kind of thing where
Yeah.
it's like you're used to just the
Absolutely.
same high school for the past 4 years, same old, same city for the past 12 versus like going there and actually being in the Fisher College of Business halls and all that. Like it felt like I was, like really in it. Like everything that I've been preparing for and planning for actually felt real. Um, which is I mean, it's a great feeling because I've been waiting for this so long. I took AP Gov last year, and dude, I did not do a damn thing in relation to AP Gov for the last couple months. I just started researching Ohio State specifically, but just college stuff in general. I mean, I literally had like I actually have multiple at this point OSU document plans, and I just did a whole outline of like even up to graduate what I would want to do, and different clubs I want to do, and different um, performing groups I want to do because I'm a very big music guy and was involved in a lot of that in high school. So it's just, I mean, it's all types of stuff that I planned out for, and I know that I'm not going to do most of it because, again, being that like type A, go, 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 super prepared planning guy. Like in eighth grade, I planned out my entire high school curriculum. I planned out every single course I want to do every year for 4 years. And funny enough, I did not follow just about 90% of it because, interests change, things change, schedule conflicts, yada, yada.
There's a
Um,
little thing called COVID-19. Probably didn't help either.
yeah, I mean, yeah, that too. But just generally speaking, like I didn't follow that, but I still had a plan and it was something to go off of, which was good. Um, but So like I was saying though, I pretty much did the same thing when it came to Ohio State, and um, I already haven't followed about 50% of it already, just because now that like things are real and like I'm actually an enrolled student at this point, it's a different environment as someone who's just, reading their websites and doing their own research, which is someone who's getting the insider info and specified and personalized stuff from actual OSU staff, because it's actually in regard to me, not just their generalizations they put on their website. So it's been it's been interesting. I mean, things are going to get a lot more real when I'm, actually in the fall. That first night, I'm actually well, I don't know if I told you this, but I applied to be an office assistant, which are like there's RAs, which are pretty much I don't know if you know what that is.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean generally RAs are like your room floor supervisor, helper, upperclassman, pretty much. And then OAs are your office assistant, which is essentially the front desk of the resident hall. And those people get to move in early because they have to train a couple weeks before everyone else moves in. But with the marching band, I was already planning to move in early, but I would have to pay $35 a day and just figure out my own meals versus with an OA, because you're an Ohio State employee, um, they waive all of that and they feed you and all that. So
Yeah.
if I do that, which I did do an interview, and I felt like that went well, so hopefully I get the job offer, which should be in June or July. They'll send a notification about that. Hopefully, I get that. Then I'll get to move in early for free. And they said because it's so flexible that I'll be fine doing the marching band stuff and training at the same time. So it's looking up. It looks like I will have a pretty smooth start, and I'll secure a job and all that, which will be pretty snazzy. Um, but yeah, I mean I just got quite the year ahead of me, and I'm sure it'll be cool to kind of look back at this podcast if we do continue this, because here I am talking about like my whole first semester and whatnot, and later on I'll actually be in that first semester and talking about the moments that I'm talking about. Like even just the first night in college is gonna feel a little weird because the more
Oh,
and more I do
absolutely.
stuff, the more and more like it feels real, and then I will literally be staying in my dorm the first time ever, which again, it will be way early before anyone, but especially when like all my other friends move in and whatnot, and we're like this dream and plan and all this stuff we've been talking about as friends at our high school, and now we're actually all Buckeyes together all at the same time. And then Welcome Week, where there's, all 1,400 student organizations all out on the Oval and South Oval. When there's, Welcome Week, wipeout in the pool, and there's Welcome Week zip lines and the different festivals and different stuff. Like just being a part of that community with all my people, like for real, not just talking about it. Like that's gonna be incredible. So I'm looking forward to it. And that's honestly mainly why I decided to pick up a vlog camera and go into that, is because now instead of just having mere memories in my head, I can actually document some of that. And later down the road, I can look back as, an adult in the real world and be like, there's my friend at 18 years old, and there's me at 18 years old having the time of our lives, um, and learning great things and growing as people. But
Absolutely.
yeah.
I think there is a very big difference between, relying on your memories and relying on photo, video. Like I said, I went to San Francisco in at the beginning of April, and of course I'll always remember seeing the Golden Gate Bridge for the first time, but I can't not take a picture, you know.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a good thing that you're doing that, and that is a reason why I want to do, maybe subconsciously more than anything else, but that's another reason why I wanted to start this up again. Is like you said, it kind of creates a sort of time capsule in a sense,
Oh yeah.
uh, a moment, frozen in time, if you will, and you can always look back on that and see where are you at in your life, what's that turn into. We sent, or in eighth grade, my English class wrote letters to our future selves, and I just got that back the other day, and the way it was printed, it actually didn't even hardly print the entire thing, so I had to find it on Google Classroom. But it was interesting to see like my writing style from back then, right after COVID started. I was really mean to myself. I told myself that I was going to be alone like 3 times. And
Damn.
yeah, I kind of just told myself, about my interests more than anything. I'm a big roller coaster guy, always have been. So I was talking about that a bit. But it's just interesting to see, like, this is where I was at this point in my life. And, to be able to constantly keep doing that and looking back while also setting yourself up to look back in the future. I think it's a really good thing, and overall I think I'm a very sentimental person, so maybe that plays into it. But yeah, I mean this podcast, along with many other things, I think combine pretty well to make it easy to look back on you know vital times in your life like these, for sure.
Yeah, because I mean, like you said, they're frozen moments of time, and now we'll have conversations, long form conversations from those moments and those eras, and then we'll have my own videos of, and of course, I mean, they're edited and they're only, I'm only capturing the moments I want to capture, but either way, it's still more than just something as a mere memory or just a couple photos you took of the night. It's something, you know, actually documenting, and if I do it right, storytelling the kind of experiences I had and the kind of experience I will have. And, I plan on also documenting like all of the summer, all of the boot camp stuff. And I keep calling it boot camp. The real name is summer sessions, but no one really knows what that means. And the best way to call it is marching band boot camp. That's because that's pretty much what it is. It's all in preparation for the tryout. But yeah, I'm really excited to be able to capture that. And like you said, being able to do that as well with this podcast is, again, hopefully we make it consistent enough that by time this fall we'll already have plenty of episodes. Um, but we're gonna see how it works out with my schedule having openness. It's gonna be, I have to fit a work schedule into that as well. So I'm sure Monday might not be as available. And again, considering that I'll be, uh, a college student and taking college classes, as will you, um, it's gonna be a different environment than what we're used to. Even though, like I said, I'm pretty much used to just as much chaos, if not more. So it's gonna be interesting. But I think one thing I was thinking about the other day, which will probably hit home for you more than ever, just because you're graduating tomorrow. Which I
Oh
mean,
boy.
I know I knew how that felt like, a week ago. Um, but like does your school call it commencement?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if that was a standard thing or just uh my school thing. I almost just doxed me. But
For the second time.
it's not, yeah, for the second time, which it's edited out, so you guys don't even know about the first time unless
Well,
you.
I mentioned it in the
Oh, you
Discord
didn't.
talking about,
Okay.
watching
But
stuff. No.
yeah, on my Instagram post, from graduation, I said les fonds ont un nouveau commencement. Uh, excuse me. But that means the end and a new beginning. And the word commence, well, I'm like struggling not to just do the English or French pronunciation. Commencement. I'll say the English version, not commencement en français, mais commencement means beginning. And you don't really get to fully understand that until like afterwards. Like after orientation, and I think a lot today, and like just during the orientation days, I was started to realize, in which I talked about, like how the schedule seems really flexible, and like I actually like I truly do have freedom. Um, in that, I can. They don't care if I don't go to class. It's my own fault. Like it's that much freedom. Um, is that like it's truly the beginning of your real life. Like I was thinking earlier about how like this I've been preparing my whole life, 12 years at least in school, for this moment to go to college, to do all this stuff, to get a career, to grow as a person even more. I mean, again, we're both around 18 years old. It's not we're still obviously very young. It's not like, oh, I'm 35, but um
Sorry to all the 35-year-olds listening.
yes, I apologize to 35 and older. I'm not trying to be like, oh, you guys are practically dead. No, it's just like I'm saying, like it's the beginning, but we're still pretty young at the same time. So
Yeah.
but even though it feels like the end of high school, which it is the end of high school, but it's not anywhere near the end. And I kind of got sparked this idea by my old jazz band director that I was talking with him. One of the days I had to come in and do light stuff for my school, because I was the light crew head, and of course I'm still slaving away even after I graduated, so they still needed me. But I go in there and we're talking about graduation, past years, just random stuff. Um, and I forget where it was or if it was at that moment or another moment, but he said like I don't remember the context, but what he said was, it's really the beginning. And which I kind of like I knew that. Like I speak French. I've studied French for 5 years. I know that commencement or commencement means like beginning. So, but I didn't really capture that, even though even my principal said that, because it feels like so much is ending. And I mean, when you're involved with so many in curriculars, extracurriculars, and I mean, you did, I know, theater at your school and all that. So it's like you've done outside stuff. So all of that ended. And I mean, dude, I cried at your last show. And I cry at almost every single spring show because I see those seniors crying.
Oh yeah.
And
I'm sure you
and
saw
it's
me.
yeah, and it's
It was
not
ugly.
because I'm sad. Like
Oh, but which one
but
did
I
you
know
go to actually? Did you go to the
I
Sunday show or Saturday?
it I think it was Sunday. It was definitely Sunday.
Well, you
But
would
yeah.
know because yeah, I was like breaking down on stage.
Yeah, yeah. It
Yeah,
was the
it
last
was
thing,
definitely Sunday then.
yeah, so and of course I'm crying because I know how that feels. And it's like I have literally no attachment to your show at all. I'm only there for you. All the other people have no clue. Even though I did The Little Mermaid like you did, you know, 2 years ago, that wasn't my last show. And it was just knowing that feeling. And even like last year, like I've gone for whatever reason, I tend to go to the last shows of things and watch all these actors cry their eyes out. But
Yeah, when we
um
went to, Something Rotten as well, I remember their lead was, like, sobbing during
yeah.
their finale.
Yeah, so and it's because if everything feels like it's end, you've spent so much time, countless hours, countless days after school, like, and now you don't have that. And even post high school now, it's kind of weird. Like I've been wired for 4 years that, oh, I got to go to the high school and do this. Oh, I got to go do this. Oh, I got to prepare to go to
Yeah.
the high school and do this. That's done. And
Yeah.
it's such an odd feeling because when your brain is wired for 4 whole years to be like, what am I doing next at the high school? To
And now,
now, and
yeah,
now
where am I
what
gonna
am I doing
start?
next in Columbus? And where, yeah, what how am I going to do these things? I on my gen ed credits, when I saw that I needed a visual and performing art credit, I was like, what do you mean, bruh? I've done visual and performing arts for years. But I kind of stopped for a second. Obviously, that wasn't like a real, like a full thought, like, oh no, I don't need it. I've done it. I did it in high school. Like unless it's an AB credit, that doesn't transfer. But
Yeah.
just the idea of it, because in high school, our our Ohio, Board of Education graduation requirement, we need some performing arts credit. I mean, I think it's one. It's literally one credit at
And I think it's
at
just
my high school.
considered fine arts, so you can get that.
Yeah, fine
You
arts
can
or
get that
whatever.
anywhere
Yeah,
in any art, from like drawing, literally drawing to
yeah. So I mean, there's plenty of
art.
options, but like, dude, I graduated with like an absurd amount of fine arts credits because I did so many different fine arts, and every little thing, even if it was half a credit, those things add up when you do them for years. So I had plenty of those. So it was weird. It's like, oh wow. Like I actually like it's a new beginning. It's a fresh plate, dude. I have to build up all this stuff. I held 8 leadership positions last year and about I think like 4 or 5 the year before that. And that doesn't come from, you know, just stepping up to the plate your senior year. That comes from seeking out those positions and seeking out the paths to get there early on, like freshman year, sophomore year, especially because then you go into your junior year when you're actually eligible um, to be a leader. And I mean, it's been quite the journey. Um, I'm surprised how successful I actually became. Not surprised in that I thought I was going to fail, but surprised that, 8 leadership positions, that's not a number you typically hear.
No.
Um, but and to be fair, I'm not trying to brag or be prideful or anything, but I'm going to be honest in that some of those positions I did not do a single thing for because in high school there's a lot of stuff that they just kind of give titles out to people.
Yeah,
Um,
formalities.
yeah, just give the formalities out because but at the same time they're giving it to people who they know what they're doing, rather because they've been doing it for a while or because they just simply have the seniority. Like I was the choir stage manager, and while I respect my now former choir director for giving me that, and I'm grateful for having that role and being able to put that on my Common App and all that, like I didn't do anything in that role, and there
Yeah.
wasn't much designed for that role. It was simply because I was already involved with the stage management and just general crew side of things that they knew that I would be prepared for that, and they gave 2 people that role, and the other person, same thing. They were in a different organization that does a bunch of stage stuff, so they um, were just essentially automatically qualified for that. But in terms of the actual practicality of that role, there was nothing, literally nothing. I
Yeah.
was essentially just like a liaison. Like it was just someone who was a part of an organization that oversees the whole performing arts center. So because I was a performer inside the performing arts center and an insider in that other organization, they're just like, yeah, there's your title.
It's not a very smooth transition, but there is a question that has been on my mind for a while, and I'm curious especially to see what you think about this. And again, completely irrelevant to what we were talking about before.
It doesn't have to be.
But um and so here's my question. I have been kind of, and this is regarding religion. I have
Oh.
never, yeah, I've never really been that religious of a person. I grew up in a Christian household, and
Yes, did I?
yeah, and that's why I'm curious to see what you think about this. But I've never really been religious. But if I were to be religious or to practice a religion, it would be Christianity.
Yeah.
And I, I like, I could never like consider practicing another one. Like, I obviously I don't have anything against uh, other religions, but
Okay.
I can never practice them because I was
Why
not
not?
well because I, having been surrounded by these other ones, I could never consider those as being, valid because not to say they don't all sound the same, but they all more or less imply different variations of similar things. But I my brain, has to shut out the other ones now because I'm just surrounded by one. So what is to make one religion more quote unquote accurate or more valid than another one when most people that practice religions practice them because of their background? So like what's to say that even though Christianity is the most popular one, what if we all go and beliefs similar to that of other religions turn out to be correct, if you will? But like your most people's religion is just what they grew up with and what they're surrounded by. And obviously you can make that decision on your own eventually, but by that time for most people, it's just so rooted into their brain that they really can't leave or become something else. So I mean, what's to say that one is better than the other when I think very few people actually decide what to practice?
Okay, this is a very, very interesting question. I honestly wish you would have said it earlier, so we wouldn't have to just be rambling about random stuff in our lives, but kind of get more deep
Fair
into one
enough.
something. So this podcast might be a little longer than what we thought it was going to be, because this is not an easy question to answer, nor is it one to just give a one sentence answer to. Um, so I'm going to unpack your question just from my thing to make sure I understand what you're asking, for
Yeah.
one. So as you said, we've both grown up in a Christian household. I regularly practice Christianity, um, but that is a very newer thing to me. And we're only talking about since past October of this year that I would consider myself a true Christian. And when I say true Christian is because, as you've described, there are a lot of people that simply just because they grow up in a certain environment and because they're subjected to certain religions in their environment, or their past 5 generations have practiced Christianity, so they're going to practice Christianity because they're practiced Christianity because their parents, you know, pretty
Yeah.
much they put them in a Christian church from the get-go.
And so,
Um,
like, there's an example that I forgot to mention. Like, there are some countries, and I don't want to, like, bring a certain one up in fear of, being wrong, but, like,
yeah.
some countries, I mean, like, in India or the Middle East, it's all one thing. If you see, like, a Christian in a heavily, like, Muslim population, and you don't just become a Christian in a place where there is no Christianity. And then, like I said, by the time you get out into the real world and can consider these other religions and ultimately make that decision for yourself, why would you, I mean, why would you stray from what you know? So I don't, I'm curious, like, where those possibilities even come from. And again,
So
not to like challenge religion, but how much of
yeah.
it is actually free thinking?
Well, in terms of free thinking, we could get really, really complex there, and I don't want to break your brain because I can't even um, wrap my head around it completely. And it's also something that unless you're more of a spiritual and religious person, you won't understand exactly what I'm trying to portray to you. So I don't want to do that, and then there not be any true line of communication, because there won't be without. That's like trying to, like, two experts talking to each other, but the other one has no clue what they're talking about. Like, it's,
Sure.
and I'm not trying to call myself an expert, but I'm just saying that unless you are in the faith, it's hard to understand the very mature aspects in the faith that take long to get to. Um, and again, I'm specifically talking about Christianity, but going back to the question in that of how much does environment play into it, and how much does the choices trying to leave that environment or go to a different one, um, how do those actually like come up? How does that happen? Or generally speaking, is there one religion that's, more valid than the others? And you said that you view Christianity as more valid than the others just because you've been around it, and it's hard to even picture yourself even possibly like practicing Buddhism or something like that. That's not something you do, and that's not something you even see anywhere near your environment. So I understand that, and I think that's very true. But in my own personal experience, right, I grew up Christian. So did you. um and I actually, we have at my high school, we have this thing called the baccalaureate, which is the French pronunciation, and I believe it's the French word for graduate, or just generally relating to graduation. And it was a Christian-centered, like, essentially blessing to the class of 2024 for anyone who wanted to come up. And I actually spoke at it, because I was given the opportunity to do so. And part of that, I talked about this. I talked about how, despite the fact that I grew up a Christian, I would not consider myself to be a Christian besides, probably October of last year is when I actually committed myself and tried to actually go into the faith, and not just some, chalk it up to some fairy tale and falling asleep at every single church service. I also want to define the fact that Christianity, in its true form, at least from my opinion and what I've seen as someone who's studied the Bible and been in a very much a Bible forward church, is that um, Christianity, if you to actually practice Christianity as in follow Jesus Christ, you have to not practice Christianity, which is kind of a confusing and almost contradicting statement. But what I mean by not practice Christianity is don't follow a religion. The issue with Christianity is that it's been around for so long, and that there are so many denominations, that there are a couple denominations that, in my opinion, don't include people that don't even know Christ himself. And that's the whole point of Christianity, is to um, simply have a relationship with Jesus Christ, and that's it. There's the idea of religion is not in the Bible, which again sounds insane because what do you mean? We're talking about our religion, Christianity, and Christianity has the Bible. Shouldn't religion be in the Bible? No. It's the verse in my Instagram bio, which is plenty of people who have verses in their bio that aren't really true Christians or don't actually have a relationship with Jesus Christ. And I'm not saying that as from like a holier than thou thing. I don't think my relationship with him is perfect either. But um, that verse itself, Matthew 16:24, says, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must pick up their cross and follow me." It does not say whoever wants to be my disciple must throw holy water on themselves and do the Catholic little finger thing they do when they pray, or sing the hymns, or even to get baptized in the water sense versus just the spiritual baptism, which is really what is required of someone to be in the faith. So it's a very complicated issue to bring up. For one, if you couldn't tell, I mean, I can ramble for a long time, but
Naturally, yeah.
but in terms of what makes a religion more valid than another, in my opinion, the reason, besides environment, the reason I view Christianity from a valid point, and the most valid and the only valid standpoint, is not because the Bible says that there is only one God and you must follow the God of the Bible. That's not why. I don't say this because the Bible says me to and I'm obedient to the Bible even though I am. Um, when you observe other religions, Muhammad in the Quran and all that, Mother Mary herself is actually more in the Quran than she is in the Bible. Um, and in terms of like the Jewish faith, that gets a little more complicated when we're talking about Jesus, because the Jewish faith almost ends in terms of their history and their beliefs before Jesus, so that doesn't really include it. But most religions in general always teach to do good. That is one thing that they do teach. They also teach, for the most part, will teach or recognize that Jesus Christ existed as a human being. Um, there's just as much evidence and just as much recorded history of Jesus Christ existing as there is George Washington getting inaugurated as the first president of the United States. So, in terms of historical evidence and historical history, there's no historian, at least a good historian, that would tell you that Jesus never existed, um, which I think is something that no one really tries to make that claim, at least commonly. I haven't seen it. But just generally speaking, yes, he did exist. But then when you go into the Bible itself and you see that, I immediately go to the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5, 6, 7, I believe are the chapters. It's ethical genius, and these ethical standards that are in the Bible have been taught for thousands of years because of that. You look up ethics and you look at ethical standards, they might not credit Jesus, but all of those things came from the Bible and from his Sermon on the Mount. So I look at those things and I can see that this isn't just some fairy tale. There's no way that over 40 authors written over 1500 years, and the cross references are in the billions. I don't know, billions, maybe probably millions, but even millions, astronomical number. There's not a single book in existence besides the Bible that has that much cohesiveness and that much wisdom all in one book, and ethical genius and all the other just wise knowledge all in one book, and all those different authors still pointing to one man, and that is Jesus Christ. And going back to what other religions show, they recognize that, like, even most of them recognize that I think Buddhism says he was a great Buddha, which is kind of funny,
Hmm.
because they recognize that he was obviously a very spiritual man, regardless. But no, go figure. That's because he was God. But also, but then when you go to um, the Quran, they recognize that even in the Quran, Jesus has a big part in their religion in terms of like a tool of God. They see him as more of a tool of God, but not like a God, or well, not a God, but rather the God. Um, and repeatedly in the Quran, they really say that Jesus is not God. Jesus is not God. Like, but they don't draw the line so much to say that he didn't exist, but they also um, don't draw the line to say that he isn't a part of God's plan in general in terms of using him as a tool. So I guess the best way to simplify it is that all religions say that Jesus is in some relation to God, or in some relation a spiritual man or part of God's plan. Jesus is the only one himself who says that I'm the only way. Most all other religions say that Jesus is a way. Jesus is the only one to say that I am the way and the life and the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning, yeah, yada yada. That's the whole verse. So, in terms of validity, I look at the fact that, for one, all religions agree that Jesus existed. For two, all religions agree that Jesus has some part in even their God's plan, which is, again, a twisted version, but still, they can agree that he is in somewhat a spiritual being. Um, but Jesus is the only one who not only says that you can't do it alone and you can't do it by your own works, but he says that you are the only one by following him. He's the only way. No one comes to the Father as in God through me, but through me, rather, is what I'm saying. But through me. Um, which, again, this is not an easy thing to unpack. So I don't know how much of this you're really grasping, without, you know, studying the Bible or studying religion or being in the faith. These aren't easy topics, and these are things that I've had to study for months now. And it's something I'm still growing in, and something I just fully don't grasp. So I guarantee there's something that I've even said just now that was inaccurate because I'm not perfect. And that's honestly one of the greatest parts about Christianity, is that it's not saying that you have to be perfect. It's saying that it's God Himself sent Jesus to be perfect as an example, and to fulfill our brokenness. Because, I mean, we all know as humans, we are, at the end of the day, we all fall short. Um, we're terrible to each other at least once in our lives, and we we do terrible things to each other. We're never gonna be perfect, and we never will. We never have been. Except one man, Jesus Christ, because he was God himself. And even the craziest thing is that even Satan tried to tempt Jesus himself just to see if he could do it. Like, he tried to see how human he really was if he could tempt even Jesus himself, who he knew was God. Um, so it's a very complicated thing, but that's because it's a very complicated book and a very complicated thing to follow. But the Bible makes it very simple, and that it's you just follow Jesus. That's it. All the religions, all the modern religions, because it's been around so long and because people suck, they even twist that most simplest fact. And that's why I'm not someone who follows a religion. I'm not someone who follows a denomination within that religion. I follow Jesus Christ, and that's it, because that's what the Bible says to do, and I will stand by that forever. Um, but again, when it comes to validity, it's just that I see from a fully logical standpoint, that if all other religions recognize Jesus and he recognizes himself, then regardless, they're all pointing to him. Even himself is pointing to him. And in reality, he's actually pointing to the Father and saying, but still, through him you get to the Father. Through him you gain righteousness, and you um, have a connection with God, and the whole reason he was sent was because of that broken relationship. But Christianity is not going to say, in a lot of religions, that you have to work your way. Hinduism, you have to do certain steps to reach, I believe it's called moksha, and all this other stuff. Like, you have to earn your way. Versus Christianity says that you're never going to be perfect. You're never going, if it was up to you to reach your own salvation and up to you to reach heaven, you would never do it, and all of you would surely go to hell. That's what the Christianity plainly says. That 100%, all of you would go to hell. And I mean, think about it. People are terrible. We're terrible to each other, and it's not to say that like there aren't good in the world and that we aren't genuinely good people. Yes, of course we are. But if you try to live up to specifically the standard of Jesus Christ, you will fail 1,000 times over. 1,000 times over, a million times over, every single time, because it's impossible. But because, which I mean, you can go into the fact that the Jewish law says to forgive your sins, you had to make a sacrifice, like you had to like kill a lamb. That's why Jesus is called the Lamb of God. Jesus was that sacrifice. Obviously, he was crucified on a cross, to symbolize that and to also fix that broken relationship. Even on the cross himself, Jesus, um, was praying and calling out to his Father, God, and saying that, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. These people are mocking him, spitting on him, and putting him through the most excruciating pain possible. And he said, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And even the prisoners, the other people getting crucified next to him, who are terrible people, they've done terrible things, at least in the worldly sense and from what law says. He said, once one of them put his faith in him, he said, today you will be with me in paradise. Like, it's not by their works. That's a guy literally getting crucified right next to him, who's done terrible things to people. And he's saying, because you put your faith in me, you are forgiven and you will be with me in paradise. And that topic gets really complicated. And it's like, oh, can a murderer just on death row just say like, oh, I have faith in Jesus? And no, because it ultimately it's intent, and it is God knows your heart. So if you're doing something just to like get your key to heaven just because you want to, that's going to be apparent, and that's you can't just cheat your way there. But at the same time, it's not by works; it's by faith. And um, I haven't found a better religion or a better way of life that doesn't create me into as much of a well-rounded and good human being as it does Christianity. And that's why I view it as valid. And again, this is something that I've had to come through over a couple of months. This is something brand new to me, and it's not brand new in that fact. Again, I grew up in a Christian household, but when you don't study the Bible and you don't and you sleep through every service and you don't really care for it, yeah, you're going to chalk it up to some law school. But then when you look around and you look at, you know, how complex even just the human body is, you're telling me that that just came from an accident? That there's not some designer behind it? It's almost harder to believe that just that was an accident, harder to come with a logical answer rather than just there's a creator and his name is God. That is, to me, that is the much more logical answer because something always comes from something. But there's only one time that something has come from nothing, and truly it did come from something, and that is God Himself, and that was the Big Bang. The Bible supports the Big Bang. They say that, and then there was light. That is the Big Bang. Um, but again, to have something, you need an origin. To have, when you look at a complex building, you assume that there was an architect and you assume that there was a builder. When you look at the human central nervous system, which is one of the most complex wiring systems ever. It's incredible to look like. I haven't taken anatomy, but even just looking at a diagram, you're like it's overwhelming. You think that happened by an accident? Just out of thin air? It was just yep.
And
Like
that,
it
yeah, that concept is what keeps me from, like, I don't want to say rejecting religion.
hmm.
Yeah, that in itself, like, I refuse to believe that the existence came from nothing.
And
And
it's that's a sad way to live, in my
yeah,
opinion.
I would
If
agree.
there's no creator, if we
There's
were
no
not created
purpose.
with if we were created with no purpose, then
What are you
why aren't we
Yeah, what are
just
you
all
living
killing
for?
ourselves then
Right.
and just doing because and again, you can't scientifically explain love. That's impossible. You're telling me that when you love someone, oh yeah, what are you gonna go up? You're gonna go up to your future spouse and say, "Yes, honey, my serotonin chemicals in my brain are really firing for you right now." No, that doesn't happen. You love someone because of an unexplainable experience. And that is because we are more than just flesh and bones. That's because we have a spirit. That's because the, and again, that goes back to the fact that God, we deserve wrath. We deserve to be in hell. But by the grace of God and by his love for us, to to show grace and to have a way to be with him if we shall choose, um, then he wants what's best for us. I mean, ultimately, I think the best analogy and um, something I come back to when I, decide to be disobedient to the word and to the Bible or go against my own faith because, yeah, guess what? There's not a single Christian who hasn't ever doubted or hasn't, um, every Christian sins as well, but just in generally speaking, um, the fact that, oh, I kind of lost my train of thought, but the point is that there's not a single Christian that hasn't sinned against, but what keeps me coming back is that like I think about pretty much Jesus sitting at the living room, not the living room table, the kitchen table, just waiting for me. In that, I can go run away and go do worldly things and chase women and chase money and all this other stuff and decide to do whatever I want. But ultimately, all I know is that when I come back and I come back to Jesus, is that I leave a better life and that I not I lead a better life is what I meant to say. I lead a better life when I come back to Jesus because he created me for a certain purpose and when I go on his path and his will is that I'm a happier human being. I have an actual purpose in my life. Um I'm sorry, but I don't believe in the world in the world when I mean like if we're talking biblical sense, it says that the devil is the ruler of the world because he was cast down in the world as in our earthly, fleshly nature as human beings. When I live in the world and live for the world, um, I subscribe to the idea that the only purpose of life is to eat, poop, have sex, and die. That is that is the very animalistic, zero purpose life that a lot of people these days subscribe to, versus the very purpose of life from a Christian perspective is to lay down your life for one another, to care for one another incredibly, to love your enemies, to pray for your enemies. That concept alone is something that is incredibly hard to grasp. Pray for your enemies? You tell me I hate this guy's guts and you want me to pray for him? But then when you actually unpack that, you see that it's a level of care and a level of servantship to each other that in the end ends up benefiting you. I mean, I don't know if you've ever explored the concept of servant leadership, but that itself is an incredible thing. And most of the time, I don't know if you've explored the concept of that, the more you give, the more you receive. And it's not in that like, oh, I give $10, I get 20 back. It's that it feels a lot better to give people things than it is to just receive things. So I don't know if you've experienced that or agree with that, but um, these are concepts that are taught in the Bible. That's what it's from. That's how Jesus led his life and how he's telling people to live is to serve one another deeply, to care for another deeply, to pray for your enemies because you're praying for them not because you just have to love everyone. You just have to be that way. It's not, even if you hate their guts. It's pray for them because you two are on an even playing field. You are both human. You're trying to say that, oh, he just did the worst thing to you ever? No. Well, not no, but are you saying that you have never done anything worse or that you've never done anything bad? You're on an even playing field. You both are humans who always fall short to meet that perfect state. So pray for that person in that they can not only get forgiveness if it's that bad, but also um, just pray for them because if they're acting that bad towards you, then there's likely something worse going on within them, um, which I think is something that any human has experienced or observed in someone else where, someone's hating on you and it's not because they hate you, it's because they're insecure. And again, human nature hasn't changed. That's because the Bible talks about um, is inspired from, well, rather, the Bible is inspired by the very guy that created us. So a lot of that stuff is talking about human nature from even 2,000 years ago. But I could pick out verses in the Bible to describe people today, tomorrow, and in 1,000 years because we still act the same, regardless if we have iPhones and eat hot chip and lie or whatever this uh stupid phrases. Like, even if we don't have to strive to survive and, live in ancient societies anymore, we still act the same, or at least we still act to what the Bible describes. And the Bible offers a way out, it offers solutions, and it offers wisdom beyond many not millennials, millennials suck, but millenniums of knowledge that you could never obtain, and that's because it's inspired by the very creator himself. Um, so it's very complicated. If you couldn't tell, I could keep talking, but I gotta go to the trumpet. I gotta go to my
I was
trumpet
about to
lesson.
say, yeah, we did not expect to push the clock this much. Um,
Well, when you drop a hard topic like
well,
that at the very end,
that's a fair point. Well, perhaps the lesson to take from this very first episode of the East 15th, soon to be renamed the Velvet Parlor, um,
no,
um, I think regardless of what you may believe in terms of higher faith, I think we can all agree that maybe it would do us better to be kind to one. And Chase has a trumpet lesson to go to, but
I
we're
do have a
back.
trumpet lesson. I do have a trumpet lesson to go to. This is true.
So
Um,
if we never have
actually,
another serious discussion on here,
hold on, Aaron, hold on. Before
yes.
you end it, I can probably do like 10 more minutes, probably realistically, because I'm ready. Like I just have to get up and leave, pretty much.
Well, I mean, I think we've said what we need to, and
I mean, do you have any sort of response to my rant or any thoughts?
well, like you said, it's a lot to process, especially for someone like me who, yeah, I haven't put any thought into it or any studying into the Bible, and
Yeah.
it's an interesting point. and of course, I learned some things from you about other religions as well that I never would have known otherwise. And yeah, it's an interesting point. I still can't help but wonder how much outside influence goes into what molds your beliefs for the rest of your life. However, I think I am more optimistic now than I was that there is some free will in that decision. And
Don't get me started on free will, dude. That's
I know. I know. I am more optimistic now than I was, and it it definitely leaves you thinking. I'll put
yeah.
it that way.
Yeah, I mean it's a very complex thing. I mean, we're talking about something that humans have wrestled with for thousands of years. Um,
Fair
because it
enough.
is not a simple thing, especially when we're talking about invisible qualities. But I think the thing that keeps me going is the fact that, I mean, even in my first YouTube video, I talk about Romans 1:20, which I'm not going to pull up the verse, nor can I recount it word for word, but generally it says that God reveals himself through the invisible qualities of his creation. When you look in a forest, the redwood forest has 100+ foot tall trees. They complex things. When you look at, like I said, the human central nervous system, how complex it is. There's there simply has to be a creator. I can't see any other way or any other logical or fulfilling way that um, points to the origin of the design of these things. I mean, it's just they're way too complex. When you look at a very complex and amazing machine, you know that there was a engineer behind it. I said the building analogy, you know that there was an architect and a builder. That's I don't. It's incredible to me that there's so many people that will immediately assume that yes, that this beautiful building probably had an amazing architect, but then they will look themselves in the mirror and think that they were just a mistake. And that is
Yeah.
a very sad life to live.
I and from everything that you just said to up to that point, I would wholeheartedly agree with you.
Yeah.
Um,
And and again, it's like a lot of people can, I think the term is agnostic, is the fact that
yeah,
it's not that, which I think you could describe yourself as, is
I
that,
I do.
yeah, yeah, you don't believe in a specific God, but you believe that there is at least somewhat a creator, that there is more than just, you know, uh, eat, sleep, poop, and orgasm. There's more to life than that. Um,
Yes,
a-
absolutely.
and and I don't know. And the thing is right, is you can. I encourage you, at least in your college studies, if you have electives, to, um, which you probably will have to do it for gen ed credits anyway, but like expose yourself to some other religions. You can study Christianity if you think that's your most comfortable with. If you truly do want to try and define the agnostic part of you and see, you know, and choose for yourself what you think is best. I mean, there are tons of religions. Obviously, you could probably guess which one I think is the best one, and which one is the valid one.
Yeah,
But at the same time, there's a lot to it. There's not a single religion that isn't going to be complex. I mean, I believe there's millions of gods in Hinduism, so good luck if you study that one. But um, but you know, all I know is that at the end of the day, I've led a happier life. I've led a more successful life. I've been a better person to other people. And if it's all a lie, if it's all not true, and truly we are just an accident, then regardless, I have led a happier life and I have filled my life with meaning because of uh, the Bible and because of Christianity, not because I'm following religion, but because I'm following Jesus Christ and the things and the ways that He has said to follow to lead your life with. Um, and I mean, again, if you want to go from a logical standpoint, even if it's all a lie, and my prayers aren't to a true being, that they're just I'm talking to no one. That either way, I'm still talking and reflecting. I'm still reflecting on myself, and I still get benefit out of that regardless. So either way, I'm leading a better life, and I specifically not specifically, I especially recommend to you being agnostic that if you want to just try stuff out and just see what works. And I mean, you don't have to, obviously, but there are plenty of options out there, and I heard someone say one time, when I think on an Instagram reel, just pray to something, like, because again, prayer itself is a great tool of reflection. Even if you believe that you're talking to no one, truly, and even if your heart thinks you're just being an idiot and talking to no one, at least you're talking about yourself. Instead of just going about your life, living a meaningless life, you're actually reflecting on what you're doing and who you are and what you put purpose in.
Well, and
So
it's funny you mentioned that. And again, this is a rabbit hole we don't have time to go down. I have
I got 6 minutes.
spoken I have spoken out loud in a manner of reflection, or what you would consider prayer, I guess.
Yeah.
Feeling like somebody was there.
Yeah. And I
I
feel like
don't
a lot of a
know.
lot of people have that experience.
Yeah,
Um,
and like,
and that's
so specifically, I mean, obviously I don't know what God I'm talking to necessarily, being, agnostic. But for example, my mom's mother, who passed away before I was born, I'll say something more or less directed at her, and it doesn't feel like it goes unheard. Where she is, I don't know, but
well,
I
and
feel
that
like
and
she's
that's the
there.
thing. And that's the thing, is that we naturally, I feel like most of us end up being spiritual beings, and that's the reality, is that we are spiritual beings, is that we are created with the spirit, and that we have more than just flesh and bones. Um, so, and while I don't have time to go into the biblical standards of if you're talking to your dead grandma, um, uh, it's the reality is that we are spiritual beings. I fully believe that we have spirits within us. Um, I think
As
I'm
do
very
I.
grateful to have the Holy Spirit. Um, that's my guy right there, the Holy Spirit, Jesus Christ, JC, if you will. Um, but even being agnostic, I mean, don't go get crystals and turn into a total stoner hippie spirit kind of guy.
Yeah,
But
I do not plan on it.
um, yeah, but I mean, I recommend.
No offense to
Uh,
the crystal stoner hippies listening out there
yeah,
that are also
and
35 years old.
there's yeah, and there's lots of those specific demographic listening right now.
Yes.
But you just, I'd say, be open minded. I know you said it's like if you were going to practice a religion, it would pretty much have to be Christianity. Um, and while I, as someone who has practiced Christianity, as someone who's studied it, I especially would not go to other one. Um, there are a lot of options, and again, all religions, pretty much for the most part, except the radical, weird pagan ones, that worship like water or whatever. But like they all teach to do good. So regardless, you will live a happy life. But I'm confident in that the religion I practice, and the man I follow, and the higher power that I follow, um, that because of his grace and because of his teachings and whatnot, I have confidence in that that's the one for me. And I mean, so the world agrees in that, it's the most popular religion. But again, that goes into the environment question, that, well, because it's the most popular religion, is that just because it's already popular that it maintains popular because people's religion gets influenced by their environment? And I think that is a valid argument, and I think that is a very true thing, because that happened to me. But again, I think it's even more interesting that both of us have had that environmental influence, but I came back to it not because of some random thing or some other motive, but simply because I realized that I led a life way far of it, and that truly, if I stayed with it, I would have already led a better life. And now that am back to it, that I believe that it is a way better life to live, and a way better purposeful life. Um, and I fully stand by and defend everything that the Bible says, because of the wisdom and because of the freedom of being in Christ is it's. I saw a shirt that's way too expensive, so I wish I would be more motivated to get it because it has an amazing saying on the back of it, but it says freedom in Christ is freedom in life. Um, which can be kind of hard to grasp for some people because it feels like some people have a view of religion and oh, you got to follow these rules and all this stuff. Um, actually, which it's more complicated than that, but it's not that you have to follow all these rules. It's that you obey your loving Father and you are following truth. You're not following these rules just be like you would follow a speed limit. You're following truth because you believe in it, and because you've seen how much greater it is. But it is 2:09, 27 seconds, 28 seconds, 29 seconds, 30 seconds.
All right.
I have a second clock on my Mac.
I
But
see.
yes, 36 seconds, 37. But I think it's good to go ahead and wrap up. Now we're 2 hours deep, so this has been quite the hefty podcast, but I think it's a
Well,
good one to start
really
out.
more like 90 minutes, but yeah. I mean,
Um,
something like that. I don't know. We
yeah,
started at 12:29.
yeah, at least according to our recording software, it says 2 hours ago, but that math does not add up. But whatever.
No, I think
Um,
it's just numerical. Like when it hit 2, it said that.
Gotcha. Well, either way, um, I hope I've given you something to think about, which it sounds like I have. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, and I'm sure we can talk about this later. I'm probably gonna be back within the hour anyway, because my lesson's only uh 30 minutes long. But
I will
I'm
not.
just glad to get.
I will be going out shortly,
Okay,
but
gotcha. All right. Well, either way, I'm glad we had some good conversations. I'm glad we can get this podcast started. And to whoever's
absolutely.
listening, if you've made it this far, thank you for listening. Hopefully there will be a podcast next week as well. We will see what happens. Our greatest streak is 5. Our second greatest streak is 2. So if we can get to 3, I think
We will
that'd
be
be a good
content.
goal. I think
Absolutely.
that would be a good goal for now. Hopefully we end up being like, oh, this is episode 75. That I think that'd be amazing because like prayer is a good thing of reflection. Having good conversations with longtime friends and just being able to talk to people for long form is a good thing for I think anyone. So this is something I want to continue even if it's going to take up some of my time. Um, I believe it's good for the both of us and for the world. But thank you for listening, and this has been the 15th